Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter, with the hashtag lovesummerart event here on YouTube. If you search hashtag lovesummerart, you will find so many really fun projects by various artists and crafters all over the tubes. It's so much fun, and I am so happy to be taking part in it. So what we're going to do is sketch a parrot, and I am using my Caran d'Ache watercolor crayons. I'm going to use an orange, a blue, and a green, and we're going to draw this together in real time, and then I'm going to speed it up while we create the mixed media art. So what you want to do is basically get your basic drawing down. I'm starting off with some cobalt blue, and I'm going to put the head in here. It's kind of like an upside down U shape. All right, don't be too fussy. Watercolor crayons are so forgiving. You can actually kind of just wash out any mistakes with a wet brush. Here I'm putting in an oval for the body. So I'm just kind of thinking of the parrot there, cocking its head towards me, saying, "Hey, what's up, lady?" And putting in a wing there. Then I'm going to put the tail feathers going straight down from the body. Let me see you shake your tail feathers. I'm feeling like in the summer beach party mood today. I don't know about you, but I have been waiting for summer for a very long time. And now just kind of a rounded triangle for the beak there. And really, that's about all you need just to get going on this picture. We're going to start coloring in with the watercolor crayons and, just start laying down color pretty much. I like to get as much done in this initial sketch as I can because it makes the rest of the painting go much quicker. And I feel like with our basic sketch that if you get just the basic gestures right, the basic shape right, everything else becomes so easy. And it's easy to be really free when you haven't spent too much time on the picture yet. And there I put the feet in with an orange crayon, and with a brown crayon I'm just sketching in like a branch or a rope for this guy to be hanging on. Now I'm filling in the body with some lime acidy green color, and I'm adding some teal to the wings, just kind of building up my colors before I add any water to it. Now, the reason why this is sped up and not a real-time tutorial is because I actually started doing this as a real-time tutorial, and it became a craptacular mess. Let me just put it frankly, so I had to fix it. I'm taking a piece of plastic packaging and scribbling my crayons to make a palette, and watercolor crayons are really great. They're like watercolor, except they're very opaque, so they're almost more like a gouache. You can see how I'm painting in here into this wet background. It just kind of flows, but I still keep some of my brush strokes. I'm dripping some of the paint on there. I'm just having some fun filling up the background, and you can keep adding more to your palette. As you can see, my palette is a fancy piece of plastic packaging. It was like leftover from a pack of Tombow markers I got at one point. You can also use the crayons just like a palette by wiping your wet brush against the tip. And I try to do that kind of to reshape the tip while I'm at it. You can use a variety of different colors. I think I went with a little charcoal gray because I felt like I needed a little bit of punch there in the background. And I also like doing the background before I do the focal point too much, the focal image, just because I don't have to worry about getting around anything, keeping it neat, or anything like that. And here I switched to a small flat brush so that I could kind of liquefy the pigment without putting too much water. A round brush generally will carry more water, and I didn't want that to be the case. So little small flat brush works great for that. And then I'm just going around and liquefying all of my watercolor crayon. The thing I love about using watercolor crayons is that they're a little bit thicker than watercolors, and they blend together so beautifully. They're kind of like using acrylics, except you can go back in with a wet brush and still manipulate the color indefinitely. They're very much like a gouache, but they have kind of like a silky feel to them because of the water-soluble wax that are in the crayons. So they're definitely a fun medium to try. Caran d'Ache is my favorite. They seem to be the highest quality, but if you can't afford the Caran d'Ache ones, because they are a bit steep, the Lyra ones are also pretty good. And also Reeves makes a brand of watercolor crayons. They're not as opaque as the Caran d'Ache or the Lyra, but they work great, and they're, I think $10 for a set of 24. Also, the Crayola Portfolio water-soluble oil pastels are very similar. You could do the same techniques with those, and they're about $10 for a set of 24, and they're fantastic. I recommend all of those. So give it a try if you want to kind of try something new with your art. See how you can keep sculpting. Like I had that beak a little messed up, and I was able to sculpt it out with the lighter colored crayon. Now I'm going in with the crayons and adding definition. I'm adding definition to the feathers. I'm adding the eyeballs. I'm adding definition around the beak. You can keep working and reworking almost indefinitely until you really clog the tooth. But since I'm working on 140-pound cold press watercolor paper, it's going to take quite a bit of pigment. It's going to take quite a bit of water. Definitely, I'm not using a ton of water because these are watercolor crayons and I don't want to wash them out. I just want to kind of manipulate them. It's more than adequate. It's they're just such an easy medium. Sometimes I like to use my watercolor crayons on mat board scraps, which is just a fantastic medium because the colored mat board works great. The opaque crayons will stand up against the color of the mat board, and then if your background is already colored, it really takes a lot of the work away. So that's another thing you can try if you do decide to try the watercolor crayons or water-soluble oil pastels. And I'm just going back in with more crayons and tweaking the color, adding highlights with the white and lighter shades of what I've already used, and going back and forth until I have refined my picture as far as I want to. I lost a little bit of definition, so I'm taking an X-Acto knife and I'm just scraping away some details. And you can also do this if you do clog the tooth of your paper and you want to add more in there. And back in with some definition using that charcoal pencil, charcoal gray crayon, and some more white. Your white will get quite dirty if you're going over your previous colors over and over again, so we'll need to wipe it off on a paper towel from time to time. My background was looking boring, so I decided to take a rubber stamp and use my crayons to stamp. So I wet the stamp with water and then just colored directly onto the stamp. And using several different shades of green, I was able to kind of create some foliage around my bird to make it seem a little bit more nestled into kind of some tropical paradise, I guess. You can then go ahead and paint or drag around some of the pigment with your brush just to give it a little bit of more body to the leaves, and just keep adding color until you're happy with the results. I felt like I took my picture as far as I could with the watercolor crayons, so I decided to try some Bombay mixed media ink, or India ink rather, to kind of salvage this piece. I wasn't feeling too optimistic at this point, so what I'm doing is just using my paintbrush and the India ink to help pop those leaves into the foreground a little bit, and then I decided to go with some kind of orangey reds and greens and blues and add them to the bird itself, because I just felt like I'd lost too much. I'd overworked the background and everything was just kind of dull. So I'm just kind of punching up the colors all over the picture with my Bombay India inks. Those are by Dr. Martin, and you can get these tiny bottles in these starter sets, or you can get the larger bottles. I've had this for years and I've used it quite a few times, and I haven't even made a dent in any of the tubes, the little bottles of paint. So I recommend this if you're just starting out. Plus, a lot of the big box stores have them and you can use a coupon on them. The white ink in this set is extremely opaque. You can see how I've added little highlights on the eyes, beak, and feet. They really stand up, and I'm able to pull out some of my highlights elsewhere in the picture. It's a semi-opaque ink when you're dealing with the white and the black. The other ones are transparent, but it has a great tinting strength. And something that's a little different with the ink versus just watercolor is that the ink does not shift when it dries. It stays the same color. Somebody asked me what I thought the difference was, or what would I recommend, acrylic ink or India ink, and I recommend the India ink because it has a longer shelf life. I've had acrylic inks for about the same time and went to use them and they completely dried up, whereas the India ink seems to stay liquid a lot longer. So just to kind of give you that little opinion of mine, and you can of course do whatever you think, but I think the India ink is a better buy and they cost about the same, so that's what I would recommend. So I wanted to dry the ink here so I could continue to layer, and I'm just using my regular Stampin' heat gun, and I am able to layer the crayons over the ink, which is nice because the ink does have a little bit of a glossy finish because of the shellac that's in the ink, but I was able to layer over just fine. And I'm going to show you at the end what I do to deal with the fact that this painting has some glossy spots and some dull spots. But first, let's just keep on trucking with this painting and see what we can do. I'm liking how this is becoming a lot more stylized and a lot less generic as I go on. Sometimes you just have to push through, you know, a painting that you're just about ready to give up on, and then some cool things happen that you can really be proud of. Okay, at this point of the painting, I have come back today. I did the other part yesterday, and I came back today and I said, okay, we're gonna make this happen. And I thought, you know what? This reminds me of a pirate's parrot. So I found these old rubber stamps that I had. They were from Ink Boutique, which is no longer in business, but I had this cute little ship frame that's up in the corner and skull and crossbones and these like kind of pirate sayings, and I thought, yeah, this will be great. I wanted to make sure that they would stand out, so what I've done there is I just drew some kind of swashes with the watercolor crayon in white, and then I'm adding some tinted color to that just so that it would be opaque and light so I could stamp on top of it. And yes, you can stamp on top of these watercolor crayons. You're probably thinking, I've lost my mind and it's way too waxy and it's not going to stick, but it will if you use the right ink. The ink I'm using here is VersaFine. It's a pigment ink, so you're going to need to heat set it or emboss it if you plan on wanting to work over it soon. I decided that I did want to color my little ship and skull and crossbones up there, so I'm heat setting this right at the same time as all of this. And then with my watercolor crayons, I'm sticking with the same colors pretty much. I am coloring in the little details up there in the frame. I'm not being fussy with it. I'm just getting, you know, something in there, and you'll see details of that at the end of the video. I'll share some still shots so you can see that a little bit better. And then I'm just using that small brush to liquefy everything. Now I'm stamping my pirate words on the little spots of light colored paper where I showed you, and I think they're kind of playful and fun, and you know what I love? I love pirate jokes. What does a pirate pay to get his ear pierced? A buccaneer. Get it? Ear pierced? You pay $1 an ear? Get it? I'm embossing, well maybe not, I'm embossing my little stamped images there. I just put some black embossing powder on it, and then I'm heat setting it. That'll make it permanent, and it'll also make it stand out a little bit because it did look a little bit wishy-washy there when I just stamped it on its own. And now I'm going to use some dulling spray by Crayon to make the whole picture kind of have a uniform look to it. So there won't be glossy spots and there won't be dull spots, and it will give it a little bit of protection. And here you can see the finished piece. I had a lot of fun making this, especially when I realized I could salvage it. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and you check out all the other Love Summer Art projects here on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new, I'd love it if you hit the subscribe button. Please share it on Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, and anywhere you like to share things. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.